guys, I'm Ashley.
And I'm Liz.
Welcome back to Dancing in the Kitchen. And we are continuing on our theme of eating disorders. And we've got our special guest, Dr. Supatra Tovar. Welcome.
Thank you.
Dr. Supatra is a dietitian, a psychologist, and a fitness and Pilates expert. And she's got an incredible new book, DEPROGRAM Diet Culture. So we are very excited to dive in deep here and talk a little bit further. So how about we kick off with how you got interested in nutrition, how you became a dietitian, kind of what called you to that, and specifically why eating disorders are something that you feel strongly about or care about in terms of how you help people.
Yes, and it started way early. I saw someone very close to me suffering with bulimia nervosa. And for those of you who don't know what that is, it's where you binge eat large amounts of food and then do something that compensates, whether it's vomiting or starving yourself or exercising excessively. And so I'd never known that you could possibly have a disordered relationship with food. I always just ate what I wanted, when I wanted. I didn't think about it. So when I saw that, it was really jarring. And what was even more jarring was not being able to help her.
Did she eventually recover?
She did eventually recover, thank God. But it's a very damaging disorder, and it took her a long time. And so that sat with me as I, just went through school, went into my undergrad. I studied biology with a pre-med emphasis because I knew I wanted to do something in the health field, but I didn't know exactly what it was. But it wasn't until I came out to Los Angeles and I was working as a Pilates instructor. For me too, that working as a Pilates instructor was a little triggering because you have to look a certain way and, project this body image. And so that's when my relationship with food also started to be a little bit disordered, not terrible, but I was dieting. I was making sure that I was watching what I ate and was exercising and, just had to maintain a certain, image. But what really struck me was when my clients would talk about their relationship with food. And when you're working with people, all you want to do is help them. And I realized I didn't have what I needed to be able to help them. I know a lot about nutrition. I've always been interested in food, but I didn't have what I needed. And so I went to graduate school and I got my master's in nutritional science and became a registered dietitian with the hopes that I would help people with disordered eating. But what I found is I didn't have the scope of practice still. Like I could help them behaviorally. I could help them, really, in an eating disorder clinic, in that kind of environment. But it wasn't exactly what I wanted to do. I didn't want to just, give them a meal plan and sit with them and watch them eat. I didn't want to do that portion.
And what component was missing? Like, what did you feel you needed in order to be able to serve them more broadly?
Getting into their minds. Their minds was the most important thing because you don't just develop these behaviors out of nowhere.
Right.
You develop them early, often in childhood. You get messages either from your parents, or it really does also depend on the relationship that you've had with your parents. And if you have, anxious attachment, or if you have avoidant attachment, or if you're disorganized and you come from abuse. I wanted to be able to talk about that.
Do you see the same things over and over again now the more people that you've treated? The triggers and the things that
underlie it?
Their past, yeah.
I do see patterns. No one's ever, exactly alike, but certainly having difficult relationships with your caregivers is one of the primary reasons why you might have difficulty with food, especially if you're coming from abuse. Oftentimes, say with a restrictive disorder like anorexia, you want to be able to exert some kind of control over your environment, and that usually means that you had no control growing up. And so being able to really delve into that and find out how they formulated these thoughts that made them restrict their food or made them binge eat. Binge eating is another interesting attachment style because usually it's it can be out of sexual abuse and wanting to make your body unattractive to your abuser. Yep. But it can also come out of highly stressful environments. It can come out of poverty. not knowing when the next meal is going to come, and being told, like, eat now, you've got to eat it all, or you'll never know when the next meal is going to come. So there's so many factors that go into the why we think this way.
Interesting to hear sort of the connection between caregivers and food, and it makes sense to me intuitively. I just think of like that primal connection that you have with your caregivers, the primal connection that we have with food. Like, it's a very deep thing.
Yes. And so my goal with my clients has always been to help them gain this awareness, because oftentimes you don't even think about it. You're just kind of going on autopilot, or you're operating just out of an instinctual drive. But when you become really aware of these thoughts and how they came about, and you start to heal trauma, then you can address your behaviors around food. But you got to change the thoughts first. And so I use a combination of attachment theory. I use mindfulness-based cognitive therapy. The mindfulness portion is big for me. And then how to create lasting behavioral change is another way. And that's how the book came about, because the combination of all of those factors was, to me, like the key. And, a lot of people will tell you, don't go into eating disorders. They're the worst, the hardest to treat. And I don't think that that's true. I actually think that this method has really been successful with my clients. And in the book, I include their stories. Of course, I've changed all of their details and identifying, aspects. But I include their stories so that people can relate to, what they're reading, and see that it is possible to overcome a lot of these challenges if you take these certain steps.
Do you think it would be overreaching to say that sort of the eating component is almost like a symptom of what the underlying trauma and sort of issues are?
Usually. The reason why this is called deprogrammed diet culture is it's not just what we get from our home environment, it's what we're getting from our culture.
Sure.
And there is so much, diet culture in and of itself is very insidious. It's really based off of two biases, in my opinion. It's lookism and weightism. So lookism is, trying to achieve this perfect ideal. That's what we're inundated with. These images, when we're looking at social media, when we're, looking at celebrities, everything that, but it's really invasive. It goes into our, medical system, how we're treated. That's where the weightism comes into play. So if you're not in this ideal category, anything outside of that, you're, subject to weight shaming, which is extremely detrimental to your mental health. So people are at war within themselves, and diet culture promotes like this kind of fast track, easy way that you can get to that ideal. But it's a trap. And dieting, physiologically for your body doesn't want it.
Right.
Your body, when you go into restriction, it goes into this survival mode. And it actually slows down fat loss.
And metabolism.
Yes. So often when you're dieting and you're losing weight, you're like, yay, I'm losing weight. You're actually losing muscle and you're losing water, but you're not losing fat, because your fat stores are like, your body's holding on to them because they think that you're in danger. That's sense. Evolutionary, it's from evolution. So what you do is you end up slowing down all these processes. And the minute you go off your diet, your body wants to go right back to where it started.
Yeah,
so it's
rebound.
futile. And so that's what I, help people, especially if they've, really gone down this road of an eating disorder, or even just have disordered eating, which is just eating outside of like just normal hunger and fullness. And I help them learn that that's futile. I tell them why the body doesn't want to do that. And if you were to tap into your body and actually listen to your hunger and listen to your fullness, and you have to be present to be able to do that, that's when you can actually be in harmony with your body. And so a lot of people, they have no idea. They forgot what hunger feels like. So when they really tap into that, it's really eye-opening for them. So if they can learn that, then really address their thoughts, learn how to be more mindful in their eating, and learn about behavioral change, that's the path.
I'm sure you have a strong feeling about all the Ozempics and the, semaglutides and all the things that are happening right now, considering what you practice and what you teach.
Yeah, I think it's a little frightening what we're seeing, the proliferation of it and the promotion of it. Just had a client who told me that a doctor recommended that to him in the office, and it was really offsetting to him. He felt very weight shamed, and the doctor's kind, but it's like presenting it as this is your magic pill to get out of this. And it works for some people. I do not want to discount it. People with diabetes, I think it's been helpful. But a lot of people are approaching this like, oh, that's all I have to do. Right. Just inject myself and we're solved. But if you do not address the underlying issues and then you lose the weight, I mean, you can stay on that for life, and that's what's recommended. You stay on it for life, but you can encounter so many difficulties. You can have malnutrition. You can have, gastroparesis, which is that's essentially what it's doing, is it's slowing down your digestion and sometimes stopping it completely. It can be difficult for you to get surgery because the food doesn't empty out of your stomach in 24 hours. So what are you supposed to do?
Right.
Not eat for a week?
Yeah.
That's very scary to me. So I like to show, especially with this, that there is a natural way to do this. There is a natural way to lose weight. It may not happen overnight. It may not be, this instant thing, but it is sustainable and joyful.
Right.
And, you can learn how to really enjoy and be with your food as opposed to shunning it and saying no to it, because when we do that, the minute you go off Ozempic, what they've seen with people is they gain the weight right back.
Well, it sounds like the approach that you're advocating is more about restoring the relationship with self, with food, like healing those attachment wounds.
Yes.
And, a couple things came to mind while you were speaking. One just being the food being sort of the coping mechanism. And if you take that away from people, but you haven't healed what's underneath, suddenly they're confronted with all this pain and trauma without the thing they've been using to kind of numb it out.
Right.
And the other thought that I had was, advertising, right? Like we're talking about diet culture.
Yes.
And how both with the drugs like Ozempic and then also just with advertising in the beauty industry in general, there is a profit to be made by convincing people that they're not enough.
Yes.
Right?
I talk about that a lot in the book.